Good morning, McGregor Elementary. I'm Mr. Pennell, and I'm happy to bring you our bracket book, Action, How Movies Began, and this book was written by Megan McCarthy. Movies. They take us on adventures, send us back in time, and introduce us to new people and places. They allow us to peek into the life of 16th century Queen of England or step into the colorful excitement of the 1970s disco crave. They can spark joy, sadness, and even fear. We can't imagine our world without them. When did movies start? Who invented them? The evolution of the moving picture is a long journey, with many people adding a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Throughout most of the 1800s, photography required considerably longer exposure times. Therefore, a freeze-frame photo of motion was not possible. Art, such as this painting, was the only way people could imagine a horse running while frozen in time. The question is, did the artist get it right? Leland Stanford, a wealthy horse owner and once governor of California, didn't think so. Even though by the 1870s camera exposure times had shortened, the question of what a horse's running gait looked like had still not been answered. Stanford asked Edward Muybridge, who was a well-known nature photographer, to help him solve the mystery. How would a man who photographed stationary scenes such as this valley document something moving? And Muybridge came up with a clever solution. Muybridge set up a row of cameras with threads and stretched across a track. When the horse broke the threads, snap, 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 the cameras recorded a series of photos. This is one example. Does the horse look the same as the one in the painting? Muybridge's photographs were inspired by the motion experiments of a French scientist named Etienne Jules Marey. The two men met while Muybridge was touring Paris in 1881. Marey wished to record birds in flight, but Muybridge's technique didn't work well with birds. Therefore, in 1882, Marey invented a handheld camera to better record motion. The photographer had to pull the trigger in a quick succession to get results. These are a few of Marey's photographic studies. Thomas Edison, the famous inventor, met with both Muybridge and Marey. Edison knew he could make a better invention than theirs. One of Edison's advantages was that he had a team of employees working for him. He assigned the project to inventor and photographer William Kennedy Dixon. After much work, Dixon came up with something called a kinetograph, used to record motion, and a kinetoscope, used to play back this motion. The motion was recorded on something called celluloid film. That's why movies are sometimes called films today. By 1893, the inventions were completed. Below is what the inside of a kinetoscope looks like. You can visit a kinetoscope in a museum today. The one shown here is in West Orange, New Jersey, at Thomas Edison National Historical Park. The kinetograph was quite heavy, so it couldn't be transported outside. Therefore, Edison's team erected a building in which to use the new invention. When the men turned the crank, the roof opened. When they pushed the building around the circular track, the roof and sun aligned, allowing sunlight to pour in and light up their film's subjects. Inside the Black Maria, Edison and his team created something magical. They created motion pictures. One year later, the first kinetoscope parlors opened. Inside these parlors, curious viewers peered into wooden boxes and watched slices of life animated for the first time. This is what they saw. Carmencita, 1894, was approximately 21 seconds long. Fred Ott's sneeze, 1894, was approximately 5 seconds long. And the boxing cats in 1894 was approximately 20 seconds long. Brothers Auguste and Louis Lumiere, whose family opened a large photography supply company in France, set out to invent a cheaper and lighter film camera. The Lumieres thought watching films should be a group experience, so in addition to the camera, they invented a projector to share their films with the world. The first public screening was in 1895. We stared flabbergasted at this sight, stupefied and surprised beyond all expression, said a magician in the audience by the name of George Millet. At the end of the show, there was complete chaos. Everyone wondered how such a result was obtained. Here are some of the films shown that year. They are called the French word actualités. They are something real, a slice of life, and cinema was born. Back in the United States, Edison Manufacturing Company created one of the first hand-tinted films. In 1895, it plays with movement and color. The Lumiere brothers tried this technique for themselves. After viewing the Lumiere brothers' films, George Millet couldn't resist buying his own film camera, and it wasn't long before the magician figured out how to do magic tricks using the camera. In this 2-minute film, he plays every role himself. What magic! Millet's most famous film is called A Trip to the Moon. By stopping the camera, placing a rocket ship in the moon's eye, and then restarting the recording, pop! A rocket ship appears to land with a splat. Millet created a color version using the hand painting techniques that Edison and the Lumieres utilized. As time went on, the films got better, but something was missing: sound. Although this filmmaking time period was called the silent era, it was hardly silent. A pianist or even an orchestra would accompany the soundless films. Since the movies were silent, cards with hand-lettered type were cut into scenes to communicate the dialogue. They looked like this. I'm Emma Jane Perkins, and we've got 7 cows. The year was 1913. We need some gags here, said a director to a young, English-born Charlie Chaplin. Put on comedy makeup. Anything will do, Chaplin said of his costume. I wanted everything a contradiction. The pants baggy, the coat tight, the hat small, and the shoes large. And just like that, one of the most memorable characters of the silent era was born. Another actor, named Buster Keaton, was called a stone-faced comedian. Whatever happened around him, his expression never changed. The more seriously I took my work, he once said, the better laughs I got. Keaton's acrobatic skills and risk-taking make for jaw-dropping viewing even to this day. There were no special effects in the 1890s or in the 1920s, and in this scene, Keaton did the stunt himself. No wires attached. He missed the building and fell into a net off-screen, badly bruising himself in the process. Even today, some actors still do their own stunts. Although Tom Cruise was attached to a wire, he missed the building and broke his ankle. Cruise and Keaton both illustrate a daring quality that makes them riveting to watch. Here you can see how one iconic movie scene inspired others. So here you have a man hanging from a clock, And then they show images from the movie Hugo in 2011 and also Back to the Future in 1985. In this scene, comedian Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle sticks forks into 2 dinner rolls and makes them dance. Chaplin does the same thing. Watch Johnny Depp do his own excellent rendition. In the United States during what was called the Roaring Twenties, prejudice was quite apparent. People of color were rarely included in mainstream movies. An African-American actress by the name of Josephine Baker decided she'd had enough. She packed up her things and moved to France. I felt liberated in Paris, she said, and there she became a star. Actresses like Baker, with her beauty, humor, and large stage presence, paved the way for the stars of today. In 2018, a Marvel movie titled Black Panther, with a majority black cast, was a smash hit. This is something Baker could have only dreamed of. In 1925, the year that Josephine Baker moved to Paris, The Phantom of the Opera was released. And during this time period, it was popular to use dyes to color parts of the films. The Phantom of the Opera effectively uses colors to create moody atmospheres using pinks, yellows, greens, and blues. Americans weren't the only ones creating innovative films. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is thought to be the first full-length German horror film released in 1920. It plays with light and shadow and lines. The world is angular, topsy-turvy, and jarring. The makeup is heavy and spooky. Shadows were hard painted for a dramatic effect. In this scene, all you see is a person's shadow. How does that make you feel? Nosferatu, who also created in Germany, is an early adaptation of the book Dracula. You can see how the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was an inspiration. Nosferatu illustrates stop-motion techniques used by earlier filmmakers such as George Méliès for scenes in which doors open and close on their own. Haunting. Just the shadow of the vampire causes shivers. One of the earliest science fiction films that is still appreciated to this day is Metropolis. This futuristic German film remains relevant. In it, society's wealthy travel in flying vehicles and enjoy lavish garden parties, while the low-paid workers suffer in a steam-filled underworld containing giant machines that must stay running 24/7. Some film critics loved it, others hated it. Regardless of the criticism, Metropolis's innovative sets and costumes are a feast for the eyes. Here we have an image from the movie Star Wars, 1977. The robot on the left is named C-3PO. Does he look familiar? The painting on the top is inspired by Metropolis in 1927, and the image on the bottom is a painting similarly inspired by Blade Runner, which was a movie in 1982. Can you notice the similarity with the two photos? One year after Metropolis was released, an all-talking movie called Lights of New York hit theaters. No one had watched a movie like this before. Imagine hearing your favorite actor speak for the very first time. Imagine hearing city sounds for the first time. A traffic, a crowd of people, the dings of a trolley car. What would you think? The sound in Lights of New York wasn't perfect, but people wanted more. Movie lovers began using the word talkies, short for talking movies. As in, I'm going to a talkie today. One would think that all movies after Lights of New York would have sound, but that isn't so. Charlie Chaplin's last silent film opened in 1936, 8 years after the first all-talking film had been released. Almost a century later, the movie Lion, which takes place in India, was released, and in it you hear a train horn, hordes of people chattering and rushing this way and that, eerie chimes, and unintelligible announcements echoing through a concrete space. The sounds help illustrate the confusion and fear that Saru, a young boy who is lost and wants to go home, is feeling. One movie inspires another, which inspires another. Next time you watch a movie, think of all the people who tried something new and pushed the boundaries of what is possible. Movies will continue to inspire us for generations to come. And we have all the inventors, actors, writers, and directors to thank. The end.